Hello everyone and welcome to my guide of aircraft in nuclear option. I'm going to be breaking down all of the aircraft that are currently available in game at time of recording, which is March 2026, outlining what their advantages, disadvantages are and how you're supposed to use them. There are a lot of aircraft in the game, so let's jump in and have a look at them all. So first off we have the CI-22 Cricket, aircraft that you're probably going to be spending a lot of time in the early phases of missions because it is the free one. Even rank 0 can pick this up immediately, and if for some reason you have to buy it, it only costs 11.5 million, really cheap. Now this is a light attack or counterinsurgency aircraft. Vaguely based on the Bronco, it is slow but carries quite a lot of air-to-ground munitions and is a really good early game ground attack aircraft. Main thing to bear in mind with this one is it is slow. It is very slow. So you really want to be taking off at frontline airfields wherever possible. You don't want to be going on a long flight with this. Other thing to note is it has a really large radar cross-section, and that means it is very vulnerable to long-range radar missiles. In particular, the Fox 3s that we get here can really smack this thing being launched from across the map, happily fly down, and you get little to no time to react to them. You can take an ECM pod, which will let you break the lock while notching, but for the most part you want to stay low in order to avoid being locked in the first place or break the lock with terrain. Against flares, on the other hand, you have a really small heat signature and a bunch of flares, and so you really shouldn't have too much trouble here. Generally 1 or 2 flares is enough to get rid of most IR missile launchers. Now this can be a pretty good knife fight dogfighter here. You can outturn almost anything that's not a helicopter, and you can equip a couple of Fox 2s, so you are certainly capable of defending yourself. And again, it does have gun pods, which can be very useful at hunting helicopters, but do be careful, you are very vulnerable. This thing is very lightly armoured. Most single hits are going to take this thing down. Good early game aircraft, very much worth getting a hang of because you're going to be flying it a lot. Next up then we have the TA-30 Compass. This is a trainer jet based off of a variety of different trainers, but seems closest to a Yak 130. This is a small subsonic training aircraft that can be used in both air-to-air and air-to-ground combat. It's available from rank 1, so on most servers you're going to have to level up a little bit before you can take it. But at a cost of only 21 million, you can normally use your starting funds to buy this off the bat. Now, notably, this thing is only powered by turbofans, and so you cannot go supersonic without diving, so it is the slowest of the jet aircraft. It also doesn't have its own radar. It does have data links, so if other things are being detected by your side, they will appear on your display. But on its own it is quite limited in what it can detect. Still, being relatively small and slow, it means that you can terrain hug very easily, which means you can do all sorts of sneaking attacks there, and with 6 hardpoints it can do a fair amount. You can put on a lot of Fox 2s on this, or equally carry a fair amount of ground attack ordnance. Basically think about it a lot as a better fighter, slightly faster version of the Cricket. Good early game option if you're not wanting to break the bank. And it is worth noting you can actually fit a nuke on this thing. It can take a single nuke, so towards the end game this can be a way of taking those out if you are very short on funds. But because it is slow, it is a bit of a risk to take it out. You're going to take quite a while getting to the target site. Next up then we've got our first helicopter, the UH-90 Ibis. This is vaguely based around the Black Hawk and generally serves as a really good early game transport helicopter. You can get it from rank 1, it costs 30 million, so you can still generally afford it as part of your initial budget. Notably, what makes it different from most conventional helicopters is it does have a pair of ducted fans that can rotate in order to give it more thrust. This means that it has a top speed of just shy of 500 kilometers per hour. So it's a pretty speedy helicopter, but it's still capable of absolute vertical landing. You can take this off from helipads, the Hyperion carrier, or Dynamo class destroyers. In terms of its transport role, you can take a jackknife in this, making it very useful for repairing airfields, particularly early on. And you can also, instead of taking a jackknife, take a pair of hexhounds, so this can be quite good at laying down some early defences. Now, it does also come with door gunners, which can be quite handy at taking out light targets and are particularly good at defending you against incoming aircraft. On top of that, you can take a pair of infrared missiles for self-defense, which again can give helicopter hunting planes a rather nasty surprise. Now, interestingly, an alternative configuration here is to use the front half of the cargo bay to carry 12 AGM-48s, and including the 2 that you can fit in the fuselage pylons, that is actually quite a lot of AGM-48s that you can spray out. So this is definitely slower than the other vehicles we've looked at so far, but you can put a huge amount of damage on a target if you do get within range. You can take an ECM pod if you would like, but again, you are sacrificing quite a lot in order to take that, and so very often just keeping to low level, avoiding things being able to see you is probably a good bet. You do have a huge number of flares, 64 flares, and a very, very low infrared signature, so defending generally only takes 1, maybe 2 flares with this thing. All in all, this is going to be the backbone of your early game logistics system. Next up then, another helicopter, the SAH-46 Chicane. This is a stealth helicopter vaguely based around the Comanche. Now this is very slow, with a max speed of only 360 kilometers an hour, but with an absolutely tiny radar cross-section. This, coupled with the fact you're going to be flying at low altitude in a helicopter, means that it is very possible for you to slip past enemy defenders and just avoid fighters altogether. Now, it is going to take you a while to reach the front lines, especially if you don't have a useful forward operating base, but when you do reach the front lines you can be very, very deadly. In particular, the Chicane can carry a bunch of laser-guided missiles, and because it has 4 laser designators, unlike most aircraft which only get 1, it can engage multiple targets at once with these. So it's great at ambushing vehicle columns. You can pop up, lock 4 targets, fire them all away. As soon as they die, lock another 4, fire those away. On top of that, it does have a rotary chin turret, which is handled by the gunner by default, and so that can engage aircraft that you are not even looking at, and can do a lot of damage there, cleaning up light targets and giving nasty surprises at planes that are trying to shoot you down. More suited to the ground attack role, but you can absolutely carry quite a few Fox 2 missiles if you do want to go around hunting something else and giving even more surprises to things that are hunting you down, basically turning you into a kind of a mobile SAM system. Available from rank 2, this is a little bit of a later draw, but it is only 30 million, so you can generally pick up one of these right off the bat. And it remains a really good ground attack aircraft throughout most of a mission. Then also at rank 2 and slightly more expensive at 36 million, we have the A19 Brawler, which is this game's version of the A10C2. This once again is a slow aircraft, being a turboprop, and with a max speed of only 740, you are not going to be outspeeding anything. But just like the A10, what this has as its advantage is a massive ground attack ordnance, coupled with the fact that it is very hard to kill. It can carry 16 AGM-68 fire and forget missiles, which means this can pop up, lay waste to an entire convoy or several convoys, and then go home immediately before the missiles have even hit home. Or alternatively, it can carry a staggering number of Kingpin or other laser-guided missiles, and because it is coupled with 3 laser designators, it can really do a lot of damage with these. On top of that, you can equip even more guns to it. It does have 35mm cannons, and you can upgrade this by leaving out some of your central pylons to carry either a 30mm rotary pod, very much like the A10, or even a 57mm large gun pod, which is capable of one-shotting tanks and does have air burst for air-to-air combat. And with a really nice turning radius as well, you can defend yourself quite nicely in air-to-air combat, but because you don't have any onboard radar, that means you are just down to your guns or Fox 2s as self-defense options. Now this does come equipped with a jammer by default, and with 120 IR flares you really can defend yourself a lot, especially with its low infrared cross-section. For the most part, you will be running out of ordnance long before you run out of flares. And if you do get hit, this thing can take quite a beating. It's perfectly capable of flying on just one engine, and so you can survive some nasty hits here. Certainly a missile hit to an A19 doesn't mean that it's out of action. Generally a really good, slow ground attack aircraft. Now at this point we leave behind our early game aircraft and into the very mid-game aircraft here. At rank 3 with a cost of 65 million, the FS-12 Revoker is not something you're going to be generally taking off as your first aircraft. But this is the first supersonic aircraft, and it is an air superiority jet, vaguely based on things like the Gripen and the Rafale, with a little bit of the F-22 thrown in there. It has a maximum speed of 1,445 kilometers per hour, so leaving everything else we have seen very much in the dust. And it is the first aircraft that we've seen that can carry Fox 3 missiles such as the Scimitar, giving this good long-range strike capability, and all in all just very, very good air-to-air loadout. You can also take this as strike missions. It can carry nukes as well as a limited number of bombs, as well as a few air-to-ground missiles, but mostly here this is designed around the cap role. Has exceptional maneuverability, and with 64 flares it can defend itself and always comes with a jammer, which is quite handy. One thing to note is this is the first aircraft we've come across that cannot take off from a revetment and has to use a hardened shelter or a medium hangar. That does severely limit it on some maps as to where you can take this thing off from. Still, very good mid-game air superiority fighter. Next we have another air superiority fighter. This one, rank 3, clocking in at 90 million, is the FS-20 Vortex. This is the game's version of the F-35B and is a short takeoff and landing aircraft with a central lift fan, which means you can take off from very short distances. You can also take off from the smaller Annex class carrier. Big difference between this one and the Revoker that we just saw is this is very much a stealth aircraft, particularly if you do not take external loads. Has a very, very low radar cross-section if you are running this with only the internal bays. This makes this a very good choice for dropping nukes, as the nuke can be held in the inner bay. You can sneak in with avoiding most radar and then drop this on a key target. However, sticking with the inner bays does absolutely limit your loadout. You can take far more missiles if you do add some extras there, and this can take quite a lot of Fox 3s, and so is a good cheap Fox 3 platform, or at least a relatively cheap Fox 3 platform. Main thing to know is that it doesn't have the same turning capability of the Revoker or the later Ifrit, so mostly you're going to be wanting to do surprise attacks here, firing from long range, using your stealth as your defense, rather than getting into a knife fight. Still good mid-game air superiority option. Taking a break from our fast jets, we now move to the other end of the spectrum for our next most expensive aircraft. This is the VL-49 Tarantula, which is a rank 3 118 million quad tilt-wing aircraft. Kind of think of this as a 4-engine version of the Osprey. This is a massive transport aircraft with capability of vertical takeoff and landing, or STOL as well, with a primary purpose of being the late-game transport aircraft. You can take a huge amount of stuff in this. You have the option to bring some very, very large vehicles, such as the AVF6, or pairs of other medium-sized vehicles, such as the LCV-25, either anti-tank or SAM versions, or a pair of jackknives, means that you can really do a lot with this. Coupled with the cargo hook, which can pick up a tank as well to all of its internal storage, you can deploy a fair-sized little platoon out wherever you want it to. On the other hand, this thing is kind of an insane ground attack platform as well. If equipped with the 76mm gun in the forward bay, that fires out the left and is actually capable of firing guided shells a very, very long distance, and these are excellent at just laying waste to an enemy base. Once you've taken out the air defences, this thing can just pour on damage from good range, and the 76mm shells do a huge amount of damage. On top of that, the rear bay, which can be filled at the same time as this 76mm cannon, carries 20 AGM-48s, which again you can just massively volley off and just lay waste to all enemy air defense once you're in range. Now the downside is this thing is really slow at only 535 kilometers per hour max speed, and it has the largest radar cross-section on there, so you're not going to be sneaking this thing around. Everyone is going to know that you're there. Now you can take optional ECM pods, and you do by default get 144 flares, and on top of that you can take quite a few hits in this thing. This is very beefy, far beefier than even the Brawler, but certainly does take time to get used to. One thing just to note, you do want to make sure you have bound your custom axis, because that controls the tilt of the pylons, and getting used to using those is a very important part of using this effectively. You want to be swinging them into the horizontal when you're in the air, and you want to be swinging them into the vertical or even slightly rear facing for when you're coming in to land. This thing is great towards the end game at either replacing the Ibis as your go-to transport aircraft, or just finishing off large areas of enemies once you've established air superiority. And then we're on to the end game aircraft with rank 4, where first up we have the KR-67 Ifrit, a $126 million aircraft. This is very, very expensive, but very, very good. Real world aircraft this is closest to is what the Su-57 is supposed to be. That is a very high stealth, ultra high maneuverable aircraft. This has a really nice max speed of 1500 while still having really, really good maneuverability, and its radar cross section when only using the internal bays is really, really small. So if you stick to those, you can absolutely use this as a surprise ambush aircraft. Alternatively, if you do put things on the outer pylons, you can take a frankly ridiculous number of Fox 3 scythes or scimitars, letting this be really the air-to-air aircraft at the end of the campaigns. It can also take a variety of air-to-ground ordnance, and very importantly, this can absolutely carry nuclear weapons. And given its speed, its stealth, and its nuclear capability, in fact it can carry 2 nuclear weapons, this is a very, very good aircraft at delivering those endgame nukes. If you opt for not having any outer pylons, you turn off the radar, you can still carry some Fox 2s for self-defense, but you can be nearly invisible, go out of your way to avoid the enemy, sneak up right close to their base, and then drop those big nuclear warheads right where they need to be. So this is a great late game air superiority aircraft and fantastic at being the game ending nuke dropper. Next up then we have our first aircraft that can only take off from a medium hangar, and this is the EW-25 Medusa electronic warfare aircraft. This is vaguely what would happen if an E2 Hawkeye had a baby with an A6 Prowler, and serves as a really useful utility and support aircraft on your side. It is definitely expensive with a cost of 145 million, but with a low radar cross-section it is quite hard to actually see, but more importantly is what it brings to the table to help all of your allies. Simply, the first thing it can do is be equipped with a radome on the top, and this gives it 365-degree radar coverage. This means you just fly this thing up high, over safely in your lines, and you will happily start radar designating all sorts of aircraft there, adding them to all of your allies' data links. Having one of these up and active can be invaluable. Now, on top of that, this aircraft excels at both seed and deed missions, taking out enemy air defences. So it can be equipped with ARAD missiles, essentially the equivalent of AGM-88 HARM missiles. These will seek out radar signatures and take them out. Very useful against those pesky radar missile sites. But moreover, it can be equipped with radar jamming pods. It can be equipped with a total of 4 of these. Each one is capable of jamming 1 target. All you need to do is lock the targets as you normally would, and then when holding the trigger on the jamming pod, you will jam those targets, rendering their radar unusable, meaning any guided missiles that they have fired are going to lose track. This is incredibly useful when used in conjunction with other aircraft going in, is that you can just shut down those SAM systems. This can be really useful for concentrated enemy SAM systems where they've got multiple overlapping fields of fire that are just taking out all the weapons that your team have been sending. These can shut those bolt strikes down, meaning that those missiles and even dumbfire bombs go through completely unimpeded. Other notable feature about this is it does carry an anti-missile laser system. To use this, you just lock up the missile. It only has a 30-degree fire arc, so you do need to point your nose towards the incoming missile, which can be a bit freaky, but then you just hold down the trigger. The laser drops off its effectiveness very fast above 12 kilometers, and it will drain your power supply, and it does the most damage at under 2 kilometers, so it is worth waiting to use this. But do bear in mind some of the heavier missiles that are fired at you can take quite a lot of damage before exploding, particularly the missiles the Bolt Strike sends up at you. Those absolutely can survive quite a lot here, so this isn't a guaranteed get out of jail free card. Also bear in mind that if multiple missiles are being fired at you, it can be hard to shoot them all down in time, so you might be better off turning and jamming instead of shooting it down with these. Now technically you can use this weapon as an air-to-air weapon. It does very little damage against aircraft, but it can work, especially if you do manage to just sit on the opponent's 6. You can slowly plink away at them. This will slowly cut off random parts of their aircraft, so it can be useful as a deterrent, but equally you can also equip this aircraft with Fox 2s in order to defend yourself with. Mostly though you want to be sitting away from the fight. Both the jamming radar and your ARADs and your radome all work really quite well at very long distances, so just do yourself a favour, stay above friendly lines and just mess with the enemy from there. So to sum up this one, this is your utility electronic warfare aircraft. Then last up for the aircraft currently available in-game at time of recording is the SFB-81 Darkreach. This rank 5 aircraft is your B-2 bomber. This is a massive strategic bomber, only capable of starting off in medium hangars, has a pretty lackluster max speed of only 1,000 kilometers per hour, but this is your big endgame bomber unit. It comes with all sorts of loadout options, all of which are incredibly effective. Simplest is perhaps the fact that it can take out 68 PAB-250 bombs, including the long-range glide bombs. These are fantastic for saturation attacks on well-defended enemy areas. If you let loose 68 warheads, then even the best enemy counter-missile system is going to struggle to shoot them all down before they hit home. Also has options for more advanced things like terrain-following cruise missiles, which can be very useful if there is a enemy defences behind terrain that it can sneak up and hit at the last moment. Also has access to nuclear and non-nuclear pile driver options. These are very, very good at going ballistic and just forcing their way through enemy air defense. And of course, this can carry a large number of nukes. Other one to bear in mind is it also comes equipped with the auger bombs. These are really, really good. Incredibly high damage bombs, really good for taking out those hardened enemy bunkers. Now, although it's slow, the sheer range of a lot of these weapons means that you can fire some of these immediately after taking off, so that you can do a lot of damage in a short period of time. Your glide bombs are going to take you more time to build up airspeed, but they do still give you a very good standoff capability, which is good because you're largely defenseless. You do have a tiny radar cross-section, which is aided by the fact that all of your munition is always internal, but with no air-to-air capability whatsoever, you're reliant on your allies keeping you safe. You do have a onboard jammer in case you do get a Fox 1 missile launched at you. The problem is, with a really sluggish turn rate of the Darkreach, it can be quite tricky to turn into a notch position, especially if it is a Fox 3 ARH missile heading towards you. You might simply not have enough time there. and at a whopping cost of 225 million, this is the most expensive toy that we have right now. But still, in terms of sheer damage, nothing right now compares to the Darkreach. This can just wipe out entire bases on its own. It can brute force its way through complicated interlinked SAM networks, and it is great at just finishing the game. And there we have all of the aircraft currently in the game. I do stress currently there because this game is very much still being worked on. New aircraft are coming out all the time, and in fact at the time of recording we have been getting teased about a new fast stealth bomber, a supersonic stealth bomber, and right now it looks like this nuclear capable thing is going to be capable of exceeding Mach 2. Looks like it's not going to have the same ordnance as the Darkreach, but it's going to be much faster, so it's going to be very interesting when that comes out. But because this is all very much still in development, there's not enough information for me to do a guide on this. Still looks really cool. I'm sure we'll get many more in the future, and I will absolutely put out more guide videos as and when those do come out. If you did find this video useful, please do consider leaving a like, comment and subscribe, and I do have some more nuclear option content there for you, which should be popping up at the end here. But as always, until next time, remember to be kind to yourselves and everyone else. Cheers.